This is a discussion of the test, the control test number 2 for grade 11 accounting of 31 August 2017. And question 1 relates to cost accounting. So it's a question of 60 marks for 36 minutes. For 1.1, we need to match the terms in column A with the examples provided in column B. We need to write only the letter A to E next to each question number in the answer book. So we have selling and distribution costs for question 1.1.1. So it's all the costs related to get the product to the consumer. So wood to use to make the desk has nothing to do with getting the product to the consumer, but advertising expenses do. So we advertise so that the consumer will buy. So it's directly related to selling and distributing costs. So therefore advertising expenses number B fits selling and distribution costs. So our first one is therefore B. Then we have direct material costs. So it's costs directly related to producing the product. In other words, it is as we produce more products, or as we use more material to produce the product, the costs will be directly proportionate to that. So the wood used to make the desk would be an example of that, as wood is one of the main components. So direct material cost is the big and the main components, that which we tend to observe when we study the product. So therefore A definitely fits the criteria for direct material cost. Next we have factory overhead costs. So this is now costs that is not directly related to producing the product. So it's more your indirect costs. So it will exclude direct material and direct labor. So office stationery expense doesn't have to do with production, so C is not the option. We know we already use A and B, so those are not the options. Factory rent expense though, that has to do with the factory, it has to do with the product, so it is related but in an indirect way. So therefore that would be an example of a factory overhead cost. So number D is the correct option for 1.1.3. Administration costs would be the office costs. So it doesn't relate to factory expenses, it doesn't relate to getting the product to the consumers, so it's not the same type of cost as selling and distributive. The office is the key word here, so office stationery expense fit that category. So that would be number C. And then finally direct labor costs, yes, that would be the production wages, the so-called touch wages. So it's the actual factory workers that produce the product. It excludes, for example, supervisors that don't really touch the product but just see that the production workers do their job well and solve problems that may occur during the process. So therefore 1.1.5 has to be E. So, yeah, if you know your theory, this is fairly straightforward, 5 marks. So, now next, we need to focus on 1.2. We have Beacon Boulders that manufactures school desks. The information presented relates to the financial year ended 29 February 2016. We have to calculate the following. First, the direct material cost for 6 marks. So, if we go to our information, we see we have raw material stock balances. So that's the balances for 1 March 2015, the previous financial year, and then 29 February 2016, the end of this current financial year. So our raw material stock that we use during this year would include what we did not use the previous year. So we have to start with the opening stock of 23,500. Then what we did not use by the end of the year will not form part of our cost for this year. We will only use it the next financial year. So we will have to subtract that, as our cost would be too high if we include that. We have to reduce our cost by that which we did not use, which is the 34,530. So we have to subtract the 34,530. Okay, work in progress process does not involve raw material. Finished goods don't involve raw material, so we can skip. But cash and credit purchases of raw material will increase our raw material use during the year. So we will have to add that 488,400. So we have to add 488,400. The transport costs on raw material. Remember, if we work with the perpetual inventory system, transport cost is included as part of the cost of the product. So it's part of the cost price. So we will have to add also the 14,230 Rand. Defective raw material returned to suppliers. So now our raw material use for the year will decrease. It was part of what we purchased. It's already included there, but now we have to take it away as we send it back to the suppliers. So therefore we did not use it. It will have to reduce. So we will have to subtract 8,600. Okay, then we have cash, production wages, salaries, rent expense. None of this relates to raw materials, wages, indirect consumable stores is part of indirect material, rent expense, water, insurance. No, we basically ran through everything that affects our raw material. So now it's a matter of obtaining the calculator and do the calculations. So we have in fact 23,500, that was the opening stock. We subtract the closing stock since we did not use it during the year. We add that which we purchased during the year on credit and for cash. And we add also the transport cost to get it to our premises. And then we subtract that which we send back to the supplier. So 483,000 rand is in fact our direct material costs. So next we have to focus on the direct labor costs. Okay, so we have, amongst other things, production wages, which we have an unknown amount. We still have to determine. We have salaries and wages, but that's in general. It doesn't indicate what is production, what is office, what is sales and distribution, salaries and wages, so that doesn't help much for now. Okay, the other items are not related to wages. Aha, here we get to point C, production wages, which is what we are interested in. That relates to the workers that directly work with the product, so, or to produce the product. So now we have 5 employees. Their normal times or hours per employee is 1,840 hours. So we can take the 1,840 and multiply that by 5 to get the number of hours. So we have 1,840 hours times 5 employees. So we have 9,200 hours. And the rate is the rate is 45 Rand 60 per hour. So we have to multiply still by 45,60. So 419 Rand 520 thus far. I'm just going to store this in memory for now. Okay, so we can show our calculation. So it was 5 times 1,840 times 4560. So we have normal hours, which is 5 times 1,840 times our rate, which is 45 Rand 60. So now the calculator will be useful. Well, we already have calculated that it's 419,520. Then we still have to calculate overtime. So for overtime, we have overtime hours worked per employee. So it's 77 times 5 to get the total overtime hours. So we have 77 times 5. So we have in total 385 hours of overtime. And now the overtime rate is 1.5 the normal time rate. So we have to multiply by the normal time rate firstly. 4560, but then it is still 1.5 times that, so multiply that by 1,5, so it's in fact 26,334 Rand in totality. So let's show our calculation. So it was the 77 hours times the 5 employees. So we have the 5 employees times 77 Rand times the normal rate, but still times 1,5 times. And we calculated it as 26,334 Rand. So then we still have deductions and contributions. So now remember, the employees, we will deduct from the employee's salary. Okay, so it will reduce the actual cash that the employee will receive, or the check. Okay, so that doesn't concern us now. It's already included in here, in the gross pay. So, and then it will be subtracted to obtain their net pay. So that cost is already included here. But that which is not included is the employer's contributions. So that is a cost to the company. So to the company, whatever we pay our employee is one part of the cost. The other part is that which we as employer gives as a additional benefit to the employee, that which we will transfer to the pension fund and the unemployment insurance fund, over and above that which was already subtracted or deducted from their wages or salaries. So in this case it will be the pension fund and the unemployment insurance fund. So it's 9% plus another 1%, so it is in fact 10%, and that will be of the normal time. So pension fund, unemployment insurance fund, it tends to be consistent from month to month unless your salary or wage increase. So remember, it focus on the normal hours, not the overtime. So whatever we calculated as the normal time, when it comes to the contributions, we have to take 10% of that. So it will be the 419,520 times 10%. So we have 419,520 times 0.1. Actually, you don't need a calculator for this. Okay, so it's 41,952 Rand. And now it's a matter of adding up these three components. So 4 plus 2 is 6, 2, 5, 10. So it's 6, 9, 18. So we have 10, 16, 17. So we have 1, 2, 4, 8. Then we still have the 4. So it's 487,806 Rand.